Welcome to That's Good Sports. We've got a big story today, not getting a lot of attention, as the 49ers had defensive lineman Charles Omenihu arrested on Monday. He's been a key contributor to the dominance of their front seven. We'll talk about what that means for the Niners this postseason. The Jets may be the leader in terms of executing a theoretical trade for Aaron Rodgers if he decides $58 million is worth returning for 2023. And I think Tom Brady lands with the Raiders, but there's some compelling evidence linking Brady to Miami again. So let's do the NFL news like nobody else. Less informed, less concise. That's Good Sports way. If you like NFL news done wrong, please subscribe here. Today's episode is sponsored by my friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, I'm going to be hosting a couple more $10 four-person fantasy leagues this week for the championship round. Maybe even some higher stake $25, $50 contests. The link to join is in the description. Once those leagues fill up, the draft begins. Now, last week in 4 drafts, I finished 1st, 4th, 5th, and 6th. So come take advantage of me. Now, if you want to compete for bigger prizes, you can enter the Battle Royale, the Triple Option, or the Bomb for championship weekend, or all three. The Battle Royale is offering $225,000 in prizes with $25K going to first place. All you got to do is click my link below, use my code That'sGood, and draft your team before the playoff games start. With my code Underdog, we'll match your first deposit up to $100. All right, the New England Patriots have hired Bill O'Brien back as their offensive coordinator. And before you laugh and get lost in his chin hole, I think this was a great move for McCorkle Jones and the Patriots offense moving forward. Why? Well, first of all, they don't have a fucking defensive coordinator calling plays for their offense anymore. Mac Jones and Bill O'Brien crossed paths in Alabama for a bit, but also Bill O'Brien is a good offensive coach. Mac Jones was also very excited about the hiring. Asked why? Because he's not a fucking defensive coordinator, McCorkle responded. Now, Tom Brady's second best statistical season as a Patriot came in 2011 with Bill O'Brien calling the plays on offense. O'Brien made the Texans competitive and did a great job developing Deshaun Watson. But O'Brien was such a disaster as a GM, it made us all forget he was actually a pretty good coach. Mac Jones will have a bounce-back season now that Pencil Dick has been erased from existence. The Brady to the Dolphins rumors are heating up. Tom Brady joining the Miami Dolphins is a story as old as 2020. So 3 years old is this story. Now we know Dolphins owner Stephen Ross would welcome Tom Brady with open arms. Their collusion that occurred, which also involved former Saints head coach Sean Payton, is the reason the Miami Dolphins do not have a draft pick in the first round this year. Kind of strange, all of that happened, and then Brady and Sean Payton both retired, only for Brady to immediately return and Payton to want back in now. Tom Brady himself, though, stated this week on his very own Let's Go podcast with Jim Cray and Larry Fitzgerald that he doesn't know what he's doing yet.
Do you have any type of a timetable as to what you might want to do regarding your football career?
Jim, if I knew what I was going to fucking do, I'd have already done it. Okay? I'm taking it a day at a time.
Imagine being that giant of an asshole to your co-host on your own podcast.
Kyler Murray's not going to be there. You don't know what the Colts are going to do. The Panthers need it. Like, all these teams have in common, like with the Broncos, that they just have no quarterback.
Yeah. No, wait. Gosh dang it. Yeah. The whole point of having that is so you can answer questions on your own terms. Ever wonder why I don't like Tom Brady? It's because when he shows his true colors, he's a dick. That said, he seems to be putting some roots down in Miami. Today, some creep posted this video of Tom Brady checking out a private school in the Miami area, which leads people to speculate that he intends to be in Miami at least for this season, since he may be out scouting places for his kids to attend school. He also leased an apartment in Miami, which apparently is running him $70,000 per month. My gut tells me Brady is absolutely coming back to play in 2023. When he decided to return last season after retiring, which if you read the tea leaves was the last straw that ended his marriage, you don't make a decision like that if you don't think you can play for more than one season. Will it be for the Dolphins? That I don't know, but Tua's vague post about his future doesn't put any of those rumors to rest, and that private school Tom was scoping out was not for his kids. It was actually for Gronk. Imagine how good Gronk could be if he actually learned to read and then joined Brady for one last dance with the Dolphins, who are not on great grounds with their current tight end Mike Gesicki. Keep that in mind. If Brady to the Dolphins is real, Miami could trade Tua and probably get back that draft pick they were docked by the NFL. I do think after suffering those 2 confirmed and most likely 3 concussions this season, Tua is considering retirement. But even if he returns, his long-term health is a real question mark, which sucks because I think he proved he is the guy. Now his health has to come first, and like in a lot of situations, what Tua decides will affect what Brady decides, and I think Brady is waiting for a bunch of dominoes to fall. Tua's decision, where Sean Payton could possibly land, what Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr intend to do as well. Speaking of Rodgers, like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers has yet to make a decision about his future in the NFL. Unlike Tom Brady, he wasn't a giant dick about it on the Pat McAfee show. Rodgers has to commit to playing in 2023, and then he has to decide if he wants that to be for the Green Bay Packers. Stories are already leaking, though, that Rodgers would like to be traded, and that the Packers would trade him, and that the Jets are willing to give up the draft capital to acquire Rodgers. Now, those rumors have been put forth by Adam Schefter, which makes me think the opposite is true, and Rodgers returns to Green Bay for one final $60 million season that ends in disappointment. What would a trade look like, though? That's what I want to talk about. Now, as a reminder, the Denver Broncos gave up 2 firsts and 2 seconds, plus Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, and Noah Fant to acquire quarterback Russell Wilson. I think the Jets could get away with giving up far less for Rodgers because the Packers are cheap, and the contract extension they were forced to give him last offseason it's ridiculous. Rodgers is set to be paid $58.3 million this season. Rodgers raked the Packers over the coals, which is hilarious considering he spent an entire offseason or 2 complaining about them never listening to him, never doing what he wanted, and the front office acting like a bunch of betas in free agency. And the Packers are not in a good spot with their salary cap. They're currently $15 million over the cap. I'm sure it would be easy to get back under, but they don't appear to be in a position where they can make any impactful signings, which may be a reason Rodgers wants out. Hilarious because he's the reason they are there. Now, if a trade happens, it has to be a post-June 1st designation, which would then allow the team he's traded to pick up his option, which would mean the Packers would avoid $99 million in dead cap. Rodgers has to make a decision soon, though, because the Packers have to decide whether or not they're going to pick up his option and move forward with him, or trade him with that post-1st June desi so his cap hits are manageable. If he is traded, the Packers and his new team essentially split his cap hits for the next 2 years. And both are very manageable at 15.8 evenly, and then 24.5 for the Packers and 32.5 for the Jets in this scenario. Very simply, the Packers are paying for Rodgers for a few years, no matter what he decides to do, but a trade allows them to split his cost while also netting some draft picks to continue to build for the future. My best guess is a first rounder and a couple seconds or thirds for Rodgers. Because unlike Russell Wilson and even Deshaun Watson, Rodgers may only play 1 or 2 more seasons max if he's traded. Multiple firsts for him seems steep, even though he's better than the 2 quarterbacks I just mentioned. Jets owner Woody Johnson has the cash, which is important for a Rodgers trade. Because poor teams like the Raiders or Titans can't afford that. But Woody Johnson can easily put the guaranteed money Rodgers is owed in escrow without issue. Mark Davis would have to cut P.F. Chang's from his daily diet and switch to Panda Express, and we know that's not happening. Rodgers has been linked to the Colts. I literally have no idea why any vet quarterback would want to play for that team right now. Other than he could be in studio with Pat McAfee every week if he wanted. But I'm not sure that's enough. Quarterback is the Jets' number one issue. Number two is offensive line, but acquiring a QB like Rodgers immediately makes their offensive line better. And if Mekhi Becton, by some fucking miracle, stays healthy, then that O-line might be closer to being good than we might think. The offensive weapons are there, and the defense was one of the best last season. And if you want to see my top 10 reasons Rodgers would be traded to the Jets, then check out my short that I posted on this channel. And finally, the main story, 49ers defensive end Charles Omenihu was arrested on charges of misdemeanor domestic violence on Monday. Now this is incredibly bad timing for Omenihu, who just 2 weekends ago made the clutch play against Seattle, stripping Geno Smith of the ball and erasing what would have been at least 3 points for the Seahawks in that game. Omenihu was arrested after allegedly pushing his girlfriend to the ground during an altercation on Monday. The San Jose police were called. They did not observe any physical injuries, although the victim complained of pain to her arm. She denied medical attention at the scene and was granted an emergency restraining order against Charles, who did post bail. Now, this is obviously a messy situation, and the 49ers are currently looking into the situation, and I have a sneaky feeling that they will draw all of their conclusions about the case just right after February 12th or January 30th if they lose this weekend. I don't know why I would think that. Now, unless video evidence emerges very soon or something else from this story is presented, we kind of know how these situations play out in terms of what it means of discipline from the NFL. The NFL, along with 49ers, will look into the situation, whatever that means. Unless, again, hard evidence of Omenihu's guilt presents itself, they will allow the legal process to play out, which is the right move, in my opinion, in these situations. If the charges stick and Omenihu is found guilty, the NFL will give him their max suspension. If this case is dropped or settled, he will probably receive a 2 to 4 game suspension or whatever the minimum is for conduct detrimental to the league that will take place at the beginning of next season. Meaning, I don't think this will affect his playing status for the championship game or the Super Bowl. And if Omenihu were a bigger name, a star player, this would be a much more prominent story. Omenihu isn't a household name like Nick Bosa or even Eric Armstead, but Charles is one of the solid rotational pieces that makes their defensive line so good, contributing 4.5 sacks and 16 QB hits this season. It's also worth pointing out that Omenihu is scheduled to become a free agent, an unrestricted free agent this offseason, so this could spell the end of his time with San Francisco. San Francisco traded for Omenihu after the D lineman spent the first 3 years in Houston, but the Niners have not extended him at this point, which probably means he will be a Kansas City Chief next offseason. You can definitely book that. Boom. Thanks for watching That's Good Sports here on YouTube. I am on Twitter, Instagram. If you want to follow me at those places, it's at Brandon Perna. My name. It's just my name. My silly name. And if you get bored, why don't you scroll through some of my shorts with NFL facts and stats.